All right, so the first test we're gonna do is gonna be the Cosen's test. This is also known as the active epicondylopathy test. Patient is gonna be seated, or they can be standing. No, they cannot be standing. Patient's gonna be seated. Positive finding is gonna be pain and crepitus over the epicondyle. My stabilization hand is gonna be the lateral tip. My thumb is going to go on the lateral tip of her epicondyle, and my resistant hand is going to be on the first, second, and third metacarpals. The movement for this is my patient is going to close her fist, start flexion, ulnar deviate, and bring the wrist up into extension in like a diagonal pattern. And as she's going up, she's going to supinate. Some compensations to look out for, elbow flexion, and my patient externally rotating or leaning away. So we're gonna do both sides. So when we go on the other side, you'll just go over there, okay? All right, so start in, and then just go up and hit my hand and supinate. So there's two ways we can do this, but we'll do it how I want to. So just for the camera, go again. All right. So she can do that by herself. Nope, this is not a muscle manual test. Nope. All right. Now I clearly did that wrong because my stabilization hand was right here and it shouldn't be, so we'll do that correctly again. So make sure you're sitting up straight. That is another compensation. All right. So make sure, I want to find flex. Okay, there we go. All right, and go. Perfect. And go. All right, perfect. Try to bring your arm. Bring your arm. All right. Flex your arm for me. There you go. All right, start inflection. There you go. And go ahead and hit my hand. Good. All right, and go. Good. All right, so next test we are going to do is the elbow flexion test. There is no alternative name for this test. And basically what this test is testing for is the ulnar nerve and median nerve. And, positive findings is going to be paresthesia, tingling, burning, hyperesthesia along the elbow and the forearm. My patient's going to be seated or standing, in this case, seated. It's an active test, so there's no stabilization, no resistance. The movement for this test is going to be, my patient's going to be fully flexes her elbow, which stretches the ulnar nerve. And at the elbow, then she's going to supinate, which also puts the pronator teres on a stretch. And she's going to extend her wrist. So compensations to look out for is just slouching, pretty much. She's gonna do this for 3 to 5 minutes. So she already started this while we were doing this. So we would go for 3 to 5 minutes. And if 3 to 5 minutes goes and she's feeling tingling, burning, hyperesthesia, paresthesia, it's a positive finding. Next, we are going to do the pronator teres. Now, there also is no alternative name for this test, and the test is the median nerve. And patient's going to feel pain or paresthesia along the median nerve. She's going to be seated. The test can be done seated or standing. In this case, she's going to be seated with elbow flexed to 90 degrees and forearm supinated. Stabilization hand, my hand is going to be behind her elbow. Resistant hand, distal forearm. Movement of this is patient's going to start off supinated, and I'm going to resist pronation while I passively, as the clinician, passively extend her arm. Stabilization is while I'm passively extending her arm, she might want to like hike up her shoulder or so. All right, so. All right, so actually it's this time. Make sure you guys can still see. So you want to take the slack out of it. All right, so Isis, what you're going to do first is just you're gonna supinate or pronate and passively extend you. Okay, so let's do it first. Go ahead. Okay, like that. All right. So take the slack out and go. Now it's not a brake test, so you don't want to brake or anything. So make sure you do it this way. All right. If your patient has watches, rubber bands, make sure you move them out the way or so. Take the slack out. So, yep. And then do it yourself first. Go ahead and like that. All right. Take the slack out. Go ahead. Perfect. Next, we are going to do the pinch grip test. There is no alternative name for this. This test tests the median nerve and the anterior interosseous nerve. The patient's going to just inability to put their fingers tip to tip. That is a positive. If they're not able to do the test, positive finding is inability to go tip to tip. Got it. Patient going to be seated or standing. In this case, seated. Active test, so no stabilization, no resistance. How we're going to do this test, the movement for this test, the patient's going to fully, do elbow flexion, forearm pronation, and pinch her fingers to go tip to tip. Compensation for this is if she super flexing her MCP and that's wrong. Yeah, making sure you guys can still see me. That is wrong. So Isis, go ahead. All right, so in this case, positive finding because she's not tip to tip. And she fixed it, so good. All right, so next we're gonna do two tests in one. We're gonna do valgus at 0, which is also known as the medial stress test, and varus at 30, which is known as the lateral stress test. So we'll start off with the valgus at 0. So at 0, we're going to be testing basically your extensors, so as well as your brachioradialis, inconius, and supinator RCL. Positive finding is going to be increased laxity compared with opposite side of pain or both. My patient is going to be seated or standing. In this case, she's going to be standing. Stabilization hand is going to be on the lateral elbow. Resistant hand is going to be on the distal forearm. Movement for this is patient is going to be fully supinated and elbow extended, and I'm going to apply valgus force to her. Compensation for this is patient tucking in her elbow voluntarily, I guess, or actively, and not allowing me to do that. So that's that test, and I'll show all the demonstrations at the end. And then the varus test at 30, my patient is going to be positive finding for this or structures tested is going to be the RCL at 30 degrees. So making sure to unlock the elbow. She's going to have laxity as well, compressed with opposite side, compared with opposite side. Same thing, seated or standing, in this case, standing. Now, my stabilization hand is going to be on the medial elbow, and my resistant hand is going to be on the distal forearm still. Patient is going to be fully supinated and elbow extended to 30 degrees, and I'm going to apply a varus force. For compensation, patient tucking out her elbow. So first we're going to do valgus at 0. So make sure, fully locked out. And then my stabilization hand is going to be on the lateral elbow, and I'm just going to apply a valgus force. Any pain with that? So then we'll do the same thing over here. Put on this side. Make sure it's fully locked, and going to apply. Any pain with that?
No.
No. All right. So, nope. Put your hand down. So next we're going to do varus at 30. So bring this hand up. So make sure we want to get to 30 degrees. So let's lock it out first, and then 30 degrees right about there. All right, and then we'll apply a varus force. Any pain with that?
No.
Nope. And then we'll go on this side, lock it out, and then right to 30 degrees and apply that varus force. Any pain with that?
No.
Nope. We made sure to do on both sides. No pain, all good.